I was born on May 17th, 1989. I was born in Vermont, but home was actually in New York. However, it's probably not the same New York that you're thinking of. In fact, it was a little bit more like this. Yep, I had cows basically in my backyard and lots of farms, and that was it. I'm the firstborn in my family, so for 5 whole years, it was just my dad, my mom, and little old me. Oh, look how cute I was. I said my very first word, cat, when I was 1 years old. We didn't even have a cat, so I'm guessing I must have heard it in a story or something. And from then on, I was an extremely chatty baby, and also an extremely difficult one. I had temper tantrums all the time. Like, all day, every day. Yeah, I was a pretty bad kid. So, my parents definitely had their hands full, and definitely never got any peace or quiet. Sorry. When I was 5, I started kindergarten, which is also the same exact year my younger brother was born. I was no longer an only child. So, our family of 3 became a family of 4. I didn't know how to feel about having a younger brother, but he was pretty cool, I guess. He was born with a rare liver disease called biliary atresia. In fact, 80% of all children born with this disease die before the age of 20. But he's now 23, healthy, and his liver is functioning just fine. Thank God. Woohoo! From kindergarten to 4th grade, I went to Catholic school, and I wasn't even baptized, but it was the only option for good education in my small town. As a child, I didn't watch much TV. Instead, I spent most of my time holed up in my bedroom and the library reading book after book after book after book, just like Matilda. I think I must have read thousands of books growing up. And I think that's why I love reading and writing so much, and why I know so much random information. My grammar's not too shabby either. The library was my second home. Yes, I am forever a dweeb. I've always loved animals, and I got my first pet for Christmas when I was in the 3rd grade. He was a striped kitten named Buster. I've loved to primp and dress up since childhood, too. I was almost always in a dress with matching everything. Socks, shoes, and even my hair accessories. In elementary school, I tried out lots of different sports and activities. I soon came to find out, however, I was just not a team player. But the ones that I discovered I loved the most happened to be pretty independent stuff, like bands. I played the saxophone, and I also played the flute. Art, figure skating, which I did competitively for years and years, and gymnastics, which I also did competitively. I love getting dressed up and putting on a show since day one. When I was in 5th grade, I left my private school to go to public school, and I absolutely hated public school. I was made fun of for wearing my favorite dresses to school and for my fashion sense. And I've always been on more of the quiet side, a listener more than a talker, until you get to know me. So I had a really hard time making friends for a while, and I was pretty miserable. I had always excelled in school, but I stopped getting good grades because I was so miserable, and I was always in detention for not doing my homework. It got pretty bad. I would dread going to school every day. Towards the end of the school year, though, I had made a nice little group of friends and was so much happier. And we even all ended up going to the same middle school together. It was really nice to be able to make a transition to the big, scary middle school with all my best friends from elementary school. It was like we were all in this crazy adventure together. My best friend of the bunch, Terry, I met on the school bus one day in 5th grade, and even though we've had our ups and downs, we've been friends ever since. I had a really great high school experience too. My school was pretty small. I graduated with around 150 people, and it had that small town vibe because it wasn't a small town. Everyone knew everyone. I was on homecoming court, I did cheerleading, gymnastics, played the flute in school band, competitive figure skating, and I also got really good grades and took AP classes. While I was super well-rounded, I also had quite the wild streak in me, and I still do. I once chipped my tooth on a glass beer bottle at a party, but I told my mom I slipped on the ice and fell, and that's how that happened. Looking back, she probably didn't even believe me. I got my first job in high school as a hostess at a restaurant that had a bakery in it. I used to take home leftover baked goods every single night, even though we definitely were not supposed to be doing that. We were supposed to throw them out. Well, I've always been a major sweet tooth monster, so no regrets. In high school, my first serious boyfriend ended up cheating on me at a house party with another girl in our class. So, he broke my heart. Boys. But Terry and another one of my girlfriends broke into this girl's locker and destroyed all her stuff. I didn't tell them to do this, but I wasn't upset that they did either. They ended up getting caught and they got into a lot of trouble. They had a lot of detention time. Talk about best friends having my back, though. I was a junior in high school. My mom's dad lost his battle to lung cancer thanks to cigarettes, which is why I've never smoked one in my entire life. After high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life and lacked direction. There was a state university in the town I grew up in, and some of my close friends decided to stay there and go to college. I wasn't sure of what to do, so I stayed too. I lived at home for one semester, but moved out after my mom and I would not stop butting heads. During that time, though, I got a Chihuahua, the dog I had always wanted, named Doodle. We also had a golden doodle named Teddy, who was a few years old at the time. They soon became best friends, and growing up with Teddy is the reason why Doodle is a pint-sized version of a golden retriever. I majored in broadcast journalism because I had always loved being in front of a camera and having all eyes on me. Joined a sorority, and I worked at my school's information desk, which really helped me meet a lot of people. After I graduated college, after only 3 years because of all the AP classes I took, I ended up moving down to Westchester County, which is right outside of New York City. I moved there because my boyfriend at the time was from that area. I had decided that TV broadcasting was no longer for me because the hours and pay was just not appealing, so I didn't know what to do. I blindly sent my resume out and landed a job at a PR firm in which I learned a lot about the industry. I had also just started the online courses for my MBA, which I would do after work, so I had my work way cut out for me. It was intense. This was also around the time that my parents told me that they were getting a divorce and that my dad was moving out of our house. While I had seen this coming for a while, it was still really sad to see my family split up. During this time, I also got really heavy into weightlifting and health and fitness. I had always been health conscious and had always made exercise a priority, but I was not doing it correctly. My energies were all over the place. I was doing way too much cardio, eating too big portions, and just wasn't taking care of myself properly. I did my own research, went to a personal trainer who got me into lifting, got me a lot about self-care, and showed me that anything worth having takes time. With my new routine and lifestyle, I had a massive increase in my self-confidence. Not only that, but I became incredibly disciplined, self-motivated, and I saw a level of happiness in myself that had never been there before. Having just moved down to a brand new city, I hung out with my boyfriend's friends, but I was missing having girlfriends of my own. There's nothing in the world like having a few close girlfriends. One night, a few of us decided to go out into the city and stay the night at a friend's place who lived there. We had to pick up this girl Maria from the train station that our friend Greg had met at a birthday trip to Israel. She had already missed her first train, so she was making us all super late for a club reservation. I was not too happy. I had been stuck in a car full of boys talking about car parts for the past 2 hours and was absolutely starving, so I was feeling pretty crabby and already feeling like I didn't like Maria for putting us all behind schedule. When we finally picked her up and went to our friend's place, Maria and I got to talking and found out we both had a lot more in common than I had thought. She had just moved to Long Island a year ago from the middle of nowhere, Ohio, and was going to grad school. We both had similar fashion stances, a mutual love for dubstep, had our lives pretty together, but also had our own wild streaks too. So, needless to say, that was the night that I met my best friend, and we're still best friends to this day. Aww. I discovered my true home in the electronic music scene, which had been non-existent in upstate New York. Me and Maria, our new friend Kristen, and the rest of our ever-growing group of friends spent our weekends going to different music festivals and shows. It was our happy place. I had never in my life felt so welcomed and accepted anywhere else. And so I knew that this community was one that I would always be a part of, no matter where I ended up going in life.